Hi, all. Welcome. This is Rebecca Snow, owner of the Nutrition and Herbal Collective, and we're going to do a video intro to the herbal dosing chart and some quick tips on learning how to dose herbs and how to research your supplements and figure out what is the appropriate dose. Hang on, I'm going to share my screen. I wanted to share with you one of my favorite resources that is in the shared Google Drive. It's the dosing chart that I made back in 2004. And what we have here is a list of as many, pretty much any herb you probably could think of using for your clients. And we have several reference books and their recommended dose for those herbs. Now, where do you find this? Let me show you where you find this. If you go to the shared folder under business tools, so let me get that in alphabetical order here. There's an herb and supplement folder. And in that herb and supplement folder, there's a couple of helpful resources, including an herb-drug interaction chart from MediHerb. When you're studying for the CNS exam, I would definitely recommend using this chart. That's a good chart to reference. There's instructions on how to prepare and use herbs that you could use as a handout for clients when you're recommending different herbal preparations such as teas or tinctures, powders. So that's a useful handout that you can customize. Also, Geo's Joy is a dispensary in Virginia, and she's willing to work with any of my mentees creating custom formulas. So all of her templates and resources for custom formulation are in here. And then the other document that you'll find is the dosing chart. There's a 1 in front of it. I put a 1 in front of it for my own reference because I want to find it easily when I'm looking for it on my desktop. Now, one thing that may be confusing to you if you're not really very familiar with herbs is that the herbs are listed in alpha order according to their botanical or Latin binomial name. I just thought this would be a great project for somebody who's looking for hours to go through and add the common name, like Aesculus hippocastanum is horse chestnut. So somebody could go through this list and add the common name next to the botanical name. And that would be a good way to, learn this material, because really the only way to remember these binomials is to play around with them. Now, just something to keep in mind is that these dose ranges are the high-end dose ranges. So, for instance, let's take yarrow, one of my favorite herbs. I always have some dried yarrow on hand in case we get a fever. It's one of the best diaphoretics, and it helps with the muscle aches. It can help keep a fever stable so it doesn't spike too high. It is bitter. It's similar to chamomile in its effects on the gut. But according to JS, who happens to be James Snow, 6 to 9 grams would be used in tea. The BHP is the British Herbal Pharmacopoeia, which is a standard and classic text. It's the National Pharmacopoeia of the United Kingdom. It's annually published, and it's basically gives quality standards and dosing standards based on research. The commissionee is the German commissionee. It's a scientific advisory board developed in the 70s, and they give scientific expertise and recommendations for traditional folk herbal medicine. Mills and Bone, that is the book Principles and Practice of Phytotherapy, which is a classic text. If you wanted to learn about herbal medicine and you don't want to pay for a course or take a class, I would read the Principles and Practice of Phytotherapy. These books are referenced up here. Now, the class lecturers is when I was a student, we'd have different class lecturers that would give us their preferred dosing based on their own empirical clinical practice. And the other column, I would say that that's a combination of traditional literature from the 1900s. We have some references to Roy Upton, who runs the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia. He does monographs on plants that are quite extensively researched. So those are the 5 columns giving some different dosing recommendations. But going back to our dear friend yarrow, when I make a tea for a fever, I definitely don't have to go as high as 9 grams. So keep in mind, this is a dose range. Keep in mind that people fall on a spectrum. Herbs are not as black and white as nutrients. Nutrients have an RDA, they have a TUL. We don't have that with herbs. Herbs fall more in a continuum. They're more food-like. Just like for a client, we wouldn't say you have to have a half a cup of broccoli every day. It's similar with herbs that so you're trying to find that balance between what's a therapeutic dose, and I would always start at the low end and work up as needed based on response. But for a fever, 2 to 3 grams of yarrow would be certainly sufficient. The other thing to keep in mind is that most of the doses here are written in grams. So if you want to make sure you're converting your measurements so that gram is not the same as milliliter and it's not the same as milligram. So 1,000 milligrams would be 1 gram. So just have a conversion chart handy to make sure that you're looking at that. And what I wanted to do was remind you all how to convert to grams. So let's look at a couple products here. Let's look at some Tulsi tea by Organic India, and let's look at an herb farm tincture and see how to convert these when we're looking at products. Okay, so here we have some Organic India tea. And when we're looking at a tea blend, this is pretty easy because it tells us 1.8 grams in the tea bag. So bulk herbs and teas are usually very easy to translate to gram doses. The ones that can be harder to translate would be capsules and also tinctures. Those tend to be the hardest to convert. So let's look at a product here. Let's look at Andrographis tincture. Okay. So when we look at this product, ingredients, now it tells us extraction rate. There's 175 milligrams of herb per 0.7 milliliters. So if we want to give a gram or even 500 milligrams, a half a gram of Andrographis, then we need to give close to 3 times this dose, so about 2.1 milliliters. Some important things to remember. There's about 30 to 40 drops per milliliter. A full dropperful is generally about a milliliter. You can get milliliter pipettes if you want to get more specific on the dosing. And generally a kitchen teaspoon is 5 milliliters, but not always. Sometimes a kitchen teaspoon is closer to 4 milliliters. So this extract ratio, this is the key right here. And what this means is that for the second number is how many milliliters you need to get 1 gram of herbs. So when you see this extract ratio, think to get 1 gram of herb, I need 4 milliliters of this tincture. So that's the rule of thumb with extract ratios on tinctures and how to calculate the dose in grams. Let's look at another product. Gaia Herbs. Now see, some capsule products, encapsulated products, the milligram dose is written very clearly. However, some of the Gaia products are extracted first. It's not just a powdered herb, it's a liquid phytocap, meaning they do a liquid extraction and then encapsulate it. So it's a little different than a product like Banyan Botanicals or Nature's Way, Oregon's Wild Harvest. Generally it's just the powdered herb in a capsule, and it's pretty straightforward. This is a proprietary extract blend of 350 milligrams. It is highly unlikely that 350 milligrams is 350 milligrams. And if you keep reading it, actually, let me zoom in. See here, it says each capsule contains 2,700 milligrams dry herb equivalent. So you got to read the small print. If you were thinking, I want to get somebody a gram, I need to give them 3 caps, you would be actually giving them 7,500 milligrams dry herb equivalent. And so if we go to our handy dandy dosing chart, let's look up ashwagandha. What is our ideal dose of ashwagandha? Now, that's preposterous. I don't have ashwagandha on here. That is a major oversight. I never realized that. We'll have to add it. We'll have to add ashwagandha. I can tell you a typical, oh, you know why? Because I'm looking it up by the wrong, see, I just made the cardinal mistake. Ashwagandha is Withania somniferum. It's not going to be listed under the A's. It's going to be listed under the W's. There we go. Can't not have ashwagandha on here. So according to Mills and Bone, 3 to 6 grams. Kevin Spellman says 5 to 10 grams. Roy Upton, 3 to 6 grams. Now, just a reference point, you will see studies that show positive results for general vitality and energy at 1 gram. However, for a therapeutic effect on HPA axis function, thyroid, sleep, 3 to 6 grams will be more beneficial. So technically, 2 of these caps is the dry herb equivalent of 50, about 5,400. So that would be really all we would need of this particular product. It ends up being more cost effective for the client if you can limit how many capsules. If you had a, let me show you one other product just to give you another reference point. Banyan Botanicals ashwagandha. Ashwagandha tablets. So remember, our therapeutic dose according to our handy dandy reference chart is 3 to 6 grams, and 2 tablets contains 500 milligrams. But it just says 500 milligrams. It doesn't say like proprietary extract or extracted herb. So we know this is just the herb itself. So to get 3 grams, to get the equivalent of 1 capsule of the Gaia, we would need 10 tablets a day of this product. So, and the cost of this, it looks like it's out of stock. I know the cost of this is probably around $10 or $15. So it makes a lot of sense to figure this out and to get familiar with dosing, because it can help you make more effective decisions for your clients as far as cost benefit. We're going to do a whole group meeting on this topic. We're going to do a whole group meeting on this topic on herb dosing and how to properly dose herbs, and just to get you more familiar with different preparation methods as well.